But if we want to add our client computers to here now, I want to open up, we might as well start with Windows 7. So I want to open up my Windows 7 computer. Actually, before I open it, I'm going to take a snapshot of it. Pre-join domain. That way I can recover it if I need to. Power on the virtual machine. I did copy it.
Oh. This virtual machine appears to...
So on this computer, I actually have an account called Student. That's a local account. And it is, student is the password. That's just what we create for another class, whatever your local account is for your username. Uh-oh, this isn't going to be good. Ask me later. It's actually a really good day. I'm going to see if I can extend this. Run as administrator. And it wants me to restart.
I have a lot of stuff in this Windows 7. I don't know what I have in there. Have you used it? Thank you.
And now I don't have that little warning. It didn't change my background though, because it said you're a bad person. I'm going to change your background to black. And it doesn't change it back even after it's rearmed. So if you want to do that, go to personalize and just change Windows 7, I guess. And now we're back. Now we should be good for a little while again. The same thing we have to do on this computer. We don't need to rename the computer necessarily, but we do have to change the IP configuration to have its DNS also point to server 1 so it can resolve the name Garopa. So I want to open up my network connections, and you can do it all kinds of different ways. I just right-clicked on the network connections in the lower right-hand corner, and then I click on Change Adapter Settings, and that brings me to my local area connection. Right-click, choosing Properties, choose IP version 4, and then Properties again. We can have it get the IP address automatically. We don't have to change that at all. It's the DNS part that we have to change. We don't want it to obtain it automatically. We want to actually force the DNS to be pointing to 190 first. 192.168.118.11. So we can still get a dynamic IP address, but a static DNS address. And I can click Close and close all of that. To then join the domain, it's the same thing. It's under System Properties that we want to, where we change the name and tell it whether it's part of a domain or a workgroup. So if I click on the Start button, this is just one of many ways of doing this. Right-clicking on Computer and going to Computer Properties. And then I can work with change the settings in the lower right-hand side. It's going to say, here's your computer name. It's called Student PC, and the work group is part of work group. I want to change these settings. I click Change the Settings, and then the same place on the server, it's the Change button. Don't type up there. That's just a computer description. That's not going to be helpful at all. You have to click Change the computer name. I'm going to change the computer name. I don't want it to be called Student PC. That's not very, I don't know. I want to be described the difference between my Windows 7 and Windows 8. So I'm going to be typing this Windows 7 and use an underscore client. Windows 7 client. In addition to change the computer name, I also want to have it join the domain Garopa. Garopa.com. A non-standard computer name. Oh, I should use a hyphen instead of an underscore. I'm used to underscores.
It doesn't like that?
It says you can, but it's just non-standard. So I'll make it standard. Just win7-client. The administrator account, I'm logging on to the domain. It's saying you want to join this domain. So who on that domain has rights to allow you to join this? You need the username and password. I'm just using the standard generic admin account. And if all goes well, it should say welcome to the domain. Welcome to the Garopa domain. And click OK. Yay.
My Windows 7 is still running still. Windows update. I hate it.
And it's telling me that I have to reboot. And I would have had to do that anyway if I even changed the computer name. And I'm going to restart now. Have to reboot Windows 7. I get the Control-Alt-Delete logon screen. If I do Control-Alt-Insert, you're going to see that it wants to log into the Windows 7 client as student because that's my local administrator account because that's what I said was the local administrator account. If I want to log in as, switch user, it's not the arrow, switch the other user, it's telling me that I'm actually logging on to Garopa. So whatever account I log in as Garopa, any user I type in here is logging into the domain Garopa. And I can start logging in as some of my users. And we created a bunch of users, at least some of us have. If I look on my main server, go back to my server 1 server, my domain controller, and I go under Tools, and I go to Active Directory Users and Computers, and this kind of brings back the memory of, oh yeah, all these users that I created. I have Brandon, Lauren, Samantha, Anthony, Emma, Alexis. Under Sales, I have Michael and Matthew. Let's just log in as Jacob over here. So I'm going to switch to my Windows 7 computer, and by typing in Jacob, Jacob doesn't exist in this local computer. All I had was that student account. I'll log in as Jacob. Password should be his password, but I'm logging into Garopa, and so now when I log in, it's going to allow me to log in. Each user is going to have a different profile, and so it's creating a separate desktop for this new user. And so now this computer is a client to the domain. So anything that anybody want to log in as is going to be in the domain, but I can log in as any user that I want here. It takes a while to log in the first time because it's creating this profile. If I logged in as these people later on, it is much faster. So I'm logged in as Jacob right now. I click on Start, and you can see that I'm logged in as Jacob Benfield. In fact, I'm going to shut down. I'm not just going to shut down. I'm going to log off and do Control-Alt-Insert. It defaults to the last user. We can change this through group policies, and we probably will later on. But let me switch users again. Let me log in as Emma now. And now I'm logging as Emma. So it's a computer that's joined the domain. It's that single point of access that here's the domain controller is the list of users who can access it. This is a computer that's joined the domain, and so all the requests from this computer are not handled locally. They're handled at the domain level. And now I'm logged in as Emma. Log off. Let me switch users. Let me log back in as Jacob. And it's a whole lot faster logging in after the profile is created. If it asks you to change the password, that is the default options for creating users. So if you created a user here, let me go back to the server. Let me just create a new user. Test user. By default, it says the user must change the password at the next login. We were turning that off so that we didn't have to remember all these new passwords, and we're also saying that the password never expires. That way we could type in our special password. That is not normal technique. You would not want to do this in industry. You want them to be forced to change their password the next time they log in. We don't want to keep track of all these new passwords, though, and changing. Who did we change? Who didn't we log in as yet? So I'm going to cancel that and then create that user.